Hey everyone, what's up? It is Sunday, the 1st of July. Yes, July 1st today. It is 1:11 p.m. My mom's currently at church or attending. Well, she's actually taking part in an after church luncheon because there's a uh let's just put it friends of the church, friends of the pastor have that live in Tanzania. They live in Tanzania that are like missionaries there, and they teach and stuff. And they came back. They keep in contact with our pastor and our church, to let us know what's going on. And they're back in town, so they're back in town for a while. So they decided to just put something together for them. I would have gone, but I overslept, and of course, I'm going to miss out a little bit because I'm going to have pizza. But then again, I had pizza the other night. So Little Caesars, which for about under $30, you get a Little Caesars for $30, which I'm pretty sure they're going to have anyway. You get wings. You get two different wings, sets of wings. Your choice, buffalo, Caesar, whatever. And you get a large pizza, in this case, an Ultimate Supreme, and you get 2 liters of Coke or 2 liters of soda. So which the Pepsi one's already gone, so we are left with the root beer. But I got paid this past week, so I was able to get a 24 pack of Coke. So yeah, that's that happened. But anyway, I'm here to talk about, and hopefully everybody that's gotten this link will watch it. Matter of fact, I should link it to Channel Awesome as well through the Twitter, and Doug Walker on his Facebook. You Doug Walker. Let's see, let's get this on there. Channel Awesome and Cinema Massacre, and I think even I think I should even give it to Pat the NES Punk as well. So let me see if I can find him. Just had him on. There he is. I think it to them, and I think even Angry Joe can benefit from it as well. Matter of fact, I'll just directly give it to Angry Joe. And then Animat, I think, can probably benefit from it as well. So let's Animat. There he is. And then we're going to go here to Facebook and to Doug Walker, just in case I can't get him through Twitter. I don't want to do that. One thing about computers when you're typing, it's like, depending on what you have, sometimes they like to put that thing ahead of it. I don't know. Huh. Main host of Heather's YouTube page. Okay. No, as I said, I'm looking at his Facebook right now. I guess he hosts another YouTube page or something. So I don't know. It's weird. But I'm sure he looks at his messages too. So All right. Anyway, yeah, I thought I'd come on here, and you see the title down below, and I mean above or down below, depending if you're watching on your television or your computer or your tablet or whatever. But yeah, I don't think anybody knows this because I talked about this once when I talked about SWAT cats. You know, I did a video on SWAT cats because Sage Bennett the Sage of Anime Abandoned did a not so anime themed month recently. And one of the things he talked about that was not so anime, but was definitely anime influenced, especially in its second season, was SWAT Cats. Which, believe it or not, came debuted in the same time frame as Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic SatAM, and Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was a syndication. Now, like I said, I don't think anybody realizes this, but this is 2018. Sonic SatAM debuted in 1993 this September. In about 2 months, it's going to be 25 years. And within a month, as far as we know, unless they re-opt, Sonic SatAM will stop airing and stop being a part of Star's Encore on Demand. Which means after this, unless they re-opt, you're not going to be able to see it in 720p. Yeah, Stars Encore on Demand, believe it or not, are actually broadcasting the episodes, all 20. I wouldn't say, yeah, all 26 episodes of the entire series, both seasons, in 720p. They're broadcasting it, and if you have a 1080 or 4K television, it looks even better. And it's not, cropped at 4:3. It's widescreen. I mean, it's 16 by. It basically fills up the whole screen. I mean, you would think, oh, I need an HDMI and an HDMI DVD player to do that, and you could still do that, but still, the point I'm getting at is you don't have to worry about that with Stars on Demand. Now, there are other ways to watch Sonic SatAM. There are various outlets streaming wise. There's a streaming service called, I think, Funrise or something like that, and they have a kids section, and part of that kids section has Sonic SatAM. There's another streaming service that I have on my Ruko that's basically the same thing, but it's under a different name, and they have Sonic SatAM. The only thing is they only have the first 13 episodes, which is season 1. So, yeah, look for those online. Look for like Funrise and other ones just like it, and you should be able to find Sonic SatAM. I think, like I say, Funrise and something else I can't think of it right now have Sonic SatAM, but they have like the first 13 episodes. And Stars Encore on Demand right now has all 26 episodes in 720p. And if, like I say, if you have a 4K television or 1080p television, it looks even better. And I believe they may re-opt. I don't know why, but it looks like this deal that they have with DHX and whoever else, Cookie Jar, is going to be renewed because what else are you going to put on there? Is what I'm saying. And they're not Disney associated anymore, so there you go. Anyway, yeah, 2018, in 2 months, will mark 7 years. I mean, not 7 years, but 25 years. Well, I don't know why I came up with 7. It's weird. But we'll mark 25 years of Sonic SatAM. 25 years. It's hard to believe. Now, if I was Shout Factory and I was Sega, I would come together and say, you know what? Well, I don't know if Shout Factory can do it now. I don't think they can. Well, whoever the video distributor is, I think it's the same distributor as Friendship is Magic, I think. Sorry about that. A bit of the sniffles. Friendship is Magic actually gets distributed by Shout Kid, so maybe Shout Factory does do them now again. But anyway, yeah. Basically, basically, um, what was this? Oh yeah. Basically, they could work with Shout Factory, whoever the distributor is for the Sonic shows, and get those distributed as a 25th anniversary set, maybe. Maybe they could do that. I don't know. Could be interesting. Because when you think about it, next year, or actually this year and next year, marks, depending on how you view it, marks the 20th anniversary of Sonic Underground. So that's something. That's something to look at. But yeah, 25 years. And I remember when I first saw it, I don't know if it was previewed originally on the the TGIF Saturday morning preview with Hanging with Mr. Cooper, or they did it with Family Matters. I think it was Hanging with Mr. Cooper, because the one they have on Family Matters mostly is when they were previewing shows, animated shows that had like New Kids on the Block and stuff. Anyway, yeah, 25 years ago. And I remember at the time exactly where I was. It was around mid to late September, something like that. Or early September. I can't remember. I think it was early September. I gotta look this up. All you have to do is put SatAM in Google and you get a bunch of Sonic. And according to this, you can get some of the episodes on YouTube, like Subsonic is on one channel, one YouTube channel. And you get probably some of the episodes on Daily Motion and stuff too. Okay, September 18th. That's when it started. September 18th. So September 18th this year, which will be, look at the calendar here for a second, which will be on a Tuesday, will mark 25 years. Tuesday, September 18th will mark 25 years. And again, I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly where I was. Me and my family were going through a big transition at the time. We were going through, like I said, a big transition at the time. What it was is that we were moving back and forth from California to Kansas. And this was the second time we moved to Kansas. Long story short, my dad had told us that he had acquired a house. You see, it's kind of a unique situation. Because our families, even though my parents were still married, my dad was in the Midwest. My mom was here in California. My dad was in Kansas. My mom was in California. And what happened was the house that my dad had gotten for us wasn't exactly the best choice. We looked at it, it wasn't exactly, my mom looked at it, my sisters looked at it, and it was like, no, we're not going to live here. This ain't going to happen. So basically within a day, and I think it was 1992, we just said, screw it, we ain't going to live here. We're going to go back. So what happened is my mom and dad worked something out to where she's like, look, you find us a place in Kansas that's suitable to live in, and we'll come back. Well, my dad found a place. And it was suitable to live in, except there was a problem. Actually, two problems. One problem was kind of the eerie feeling it gave my mom. But knowing my mom, she would have blessed the house. She would have prayed over it, maybe put some holy water in it, which is the best thing to do if you have an eerie feeling about it. And I'm sure it would have been okay. And the way it was located, the place it was located in, wasn't that far from any schools. It wasn't far from Topeka High School. It wasn't far from, I think, the middle school. So it was within distance of a house, walking distance, whatever. Um, and it also was accessible. Me and my sisters would have cable in our room if we wanted cable. Our parent, the living room and dining room were big enough. Everything was good. Everything was set. And there was a dark hall, of course, but that's where the eerie feeling came in for a bit. Because basically what it reminded my mom of at the time, what it reminded my mom of was not just a house that you lived in, but a house that served as a funeral home. Because the way the big gap was, like there's a bay windows and all that, there was this big gap and there was dining room, there was a room right there. But the way it was set up, from what I can remember, from what my mom looked at and from what I can remember her kind of mentioning, it reminded her too much of a funeral home. Which again, my mom's a prayer warrior, very religious, very powerful prayer warrior. In my opinion, she is. Lord, forgive me if I said that wrong. But she basically would have prayed over the house, holy watered, prayed over the house, prayed over every room, holy watered it if she had to. She would have done the works almost. Well, maybe not necessarily the works, but she would have done something. But despite that, there was another initial problem. You see, my dad had gotten the house, was on the verge of getting the house for us. But what happened is the people that he was paying to fix it up, because he had the money to basically pay some contractors to fix the place up and make it livable for us. What happened was the people that my dad contracted didn't finish the job. They was basically, when my dad showed us where we were going to live, the people, apparently the contractors were supposed to still be there working, putting the finishing touches or something. I don't really know. I can't really recall. But basically they were not there. They were gone and everything was unfinished. Now you might think, oh, maybe you came on a day where they were off. No, my dad had paid them to be there on the days they were supposed to be there. And they were supposed to be there that day from what I remember. And apparently they weren't. And I think my dad did a little research and found out that these were not exactly contractors, but they were scam artists. They had ripped my dad off. They took his money, did a little bit of work, and then left. Now, I don't know if maybe that's true or not, or maybe they were contractors and they felt, hey, not really much needs to be done. It looks okay. Everything good. We'll just do this and that. I don't really know. I can't really recall. But what I do remember is we didn't have the money to go back like we had done before. Because we had the money, my mom would have pulled the same stunt she did the previous year. She would have packed me and my sisters up, and either with or without my dad's help, she would have taken us back out to California immediately. She would have found a way to do that. But there was no money. So we made the best of a situation. We went back to the house we lived in, that we were going to live in previously, and my mom made the best of a bad situation. She made the best of a bad situation. She tried to fix the place up as best she can, and like I said, she made the best of a bad situation. We didn't have cable at the time yet, because my dad ended up getting that maybe a year or so later. But she made the best of a bad situation. And it was during this time, and this is a month before we actually did move back out, that Sonic SatAM was debuting. And of course, they had the Saturday morning previews. And my older sister at the time, because my second older sister had earned enough money from working at Taco Bell in Topeka that she decided, you know what, I'm going to take that and I'm going to move back because she tolerated just as much as she could. She said, I'm going to get enough money and I'm going to go. And that's what she did. But long story short, she, but again, my, long story short, um, my older sister still liked cartoons, even though she was a mother, even though she was a mother at the time, even though she just become a mother about a year before, to now to my niece who's going to be 26 this year, but she was like what she had just turned 1 years old out there. Yeah, my niece who's going to be 26 this year celebrated celebrated her first official birthday, turning 1 years old in Kansas. So it's got a unique history on that. Uh, but getting back on topic, we um, we ended up, like I said, we ended up staying there at least till October, and I remember watching the premiere of Sonic SatAM. Now, like I said, we didn't have cable, but we still had television, over the air, whatever. We still were able to work something out, and we were able to watch good television. I mean, the television was great and everything, so we were able to watch stuff. I don't know if we ended up getting cable. I don't think we did or anything. No, the cable didn't come until later on, but we ended up watching television. We were able to get in clear stations and everything. We worked that out. And I remember watching the premiere. And I went in my room. I had my room across from my sister's, and I remember watching um, the premiere in my room. And even though for some reason the television I had didn't have the best reception or best color, I was able to still watch the premiere. And I was hooked. Because here's the thing, ABC promoted the living you know what out of a lot of the shows coming out that year for Saturday mornings, but more specifically out of Sonic the Hedgehog. See, Sonic the Hedgehog initially as a franchise was only like 2 years old at that time. So for a big network company, a network to get a cartoon based on him was was a big deal. Now there is a rumored story going around that what became Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog in syndication was originally pitched to ABC, and ABC rejected it. And what became Sonic SatAM was originally pitched for syndication. And when ABC got wind of what SatAM was going to be, they said, "We'll take that over Adventures." Or some, there's just some kind of rumor, some kind of source and speculation on that. Um, but yeah, I remember watching the premiere, the sneak preview the night before, and then watching the premiere the day after. And despite the fact that I was able to watch most of the first couple of episodes, I wasn't able to keep tabs with it as much as I wanted to. I mean, I did watch it, yes. Heck, sometimes I had to wake my family up in the middle of the right early in the morning just to watch it because the time zone difference between Kansas and California, Midwest and West, was huge. It was like if you want to watch something. Hold on for a second, folks. It's like if I wanted to watch something early in the morning, I had to find a way to watch it without disturbing them. But I couldn't do that. That was the thing. I couldn't really. Sorry about that. I couldn't really do that. That was the point. That was my dog. She just sneezed there. But I couldn't do that. That was the thing. I just could not. I could not do that as best I could. I mean, there were times that I succeeded, but then there were times that I didn't. But I was able to kind of keep tabs with it. It wasn't until basically I was basically due to personal reasons, personal family reasons and stuff, that I was sent back out to Kansas to live with my dad, that I was able to catch up during the summer on Sonic SatAM. Heck, my dad had a job or something like that. He had recently got a job or something, and I was able to record some episodes of Sonic SatAM. Even when he was there, I was able to record some episodes because I wanted to keep tabs with it. I wanted to keep tabs on it, so I was able to catch up on the first season when I moved back there. The second season, I was able to keep tabs on almost every week. My dad was working. Of course, I was going to school, high school, that is, so I had Saturdays to myself. At least that's what I thought. But yeah, I had Saturdays to myself because I think my dad worked on Saturdays as well. I'm not really sure. But I was able to record a majority of the episodes. That's until after The Void. After I finished recording the Void episode, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to continue doing this. And then that's when our VCR, which we got at a pawn shop, which was working for a while, because if there's one thing about these secondhand pawn shops or thrift stores, one thing about them is when they get an item, they have to basically refurbish it. They basically have to fix it up to make it be in working condition. To make it, be in working condition, so that when people buy it, they won't have many problems, and it will last them at least maybe a year or two before they can get the money to buy something new. Well, this lasted me, my dad, this VCR lasted us about a year. And then, like I said, it wasn't until I was getting ready to record, I think, what was the episode after The Void? The episode after The Void was, what was it? Let me look. The Odd Couple and Rebecca. Yeah, the second season of Sonic SatAM, which was in 1994, was kind of more light. It's kind of a weird, unique hybrid. It was darker in tone at times, darker in tone at times, depending on the story. Dramatic, a little bit more dramatic at times as well. But it was also more comedic. It was more lighthearted, especially when it came to the antagonist and sometimes the story. And one of the differences was they ended up doing episodes where you had 2 11-minute shorts. They were only 2 of them, and that was it. And I think they realized perhaps that was the best scenario to go with. And the 2 episodes were The Odd Couple and Rebecca. And what happened was when I was going to go record the episodes, that's when the VCR decided to conk out on me. Because I'm thinking, okay, I've recorded, I got everything set and ready to go. So I'm recording, it's recording, I'm thinking, cool, everything's good. I go back to play it back to see if it's worked. Nothing. There was nothing there. I was thinking, what's going on here? So I tested it out on something else. Nothing as well. And that's when I find out that the recording portion of the VCR has conked out. So, yeah, I was still able to catch up on the season. I just wasn't able to record most of it. My plan basically was to record most of it, which I was doing. And then when I got to that certain portion, that's when it decided just to conk out on me and not work anymore. And I was like, well, what the hey? The only benefit, like I said, is the VCR at least lasted us for about I would say, a couple months. Yeah. Hello there, impish dude. Hello. But like I said, it lasted me lasted me and my dad a couple of months. I think a little bit more than a couple of months. I think it lasted us several years, perhaps. I think it lasted us a couple of years. Um, Not a couple of years, but it lasted us. When did we get it? I was sent back out here. I was sent back out to Kansas in the day, but June 1994. We ended up getting the VCR around a little, so it lasted us a couple months before it conked out. Before it conked out on us, so but I was able to get some things out of it. I was able to get at least a couple of tapes of Saturday morning cartoons, variety of them. Unfortunately, those tapes are now history. Yeah, I don't know if my dad took those tapes with him when he moved or what happened. I don't know. If they're now junked or whatever. But I remember having a lot of those tapes, having a variety of tapes of Saturday morning cartoons. And had I kept those tapes with me and brought them back with me, I would be able to watch certain Saturday morning cartoons the way they used to be. But anyway, getting back on topic, yeah, I was on the verge of doing The Void and The Odd Couple, I believe, and that's when the VCR decided to conk out. It wasn't until later on, a couple years later, through people like Rafaela XD, I think Jay Foxfire, and a few others, that I was able to obtain the episodes again. I was able to obtain them on VHS. I was able to obtain them on what was known as VCD. So I was able to get my hands on them again and catch up on a lot of the episodes. The one thing I was happy about, though, when I was initially recording Sonic SatAM, especially in the second season, was I got the original airing of Blast to the Past. That's right, Blast to the Past. I got it when it came out. And that was the unique thing. You see, the first season of Sonic SatAM, which again began on September 18th, and according to Wikipedia here, the season 1 finale was December 11th. The one unique thing about it was darker. You had comedic elements, but mostly on the hero side. But it was darker. It was more dramatic at times, a little bit more gritty. And the way it presented itself was unique. Well, many people have said felt like and I even felt like this at that time. I was like 14 years old. It felt like a 30-minute movie. It felt like a 30-minute animated feature, just the way it was presented. But again, like I said, the biggest difference between both seasons was in the first season, it was mostly like an introductory season. It's like the episodes had some kind of connection, but not really. They will mostly stand on their own episodes. The only continuity on it was the continuing fight against Robotnik and the fight to restore freedom to the planet. It kept, every episode was basically like the freedom fighters on a mission to defeat Robotnik, or going on an unexpected journey or mission, and ending up fighting Robotnik in the end. And some of these episodes in the first season were like, whoa, this is deep, this is dark. Sonic's Nightmare is a good example of that, because Sonic's Nightmare basically was an episode where Sonic was having this reoccurring nightmare of Sally being roboticized. It's like, basically, long story short, he would notice Sally was being roboticized, was captured in the dream. Sonic would see Sally being captured and being put into a roboticizer, And just as he's trying to get to her, he either gets stuck in some mega muck, or a bridge lets out as he's trying to cross it, or something happens. Or he loses his speed, or something happens, and he ends up being too late. So, yeah, that's how dark it could get. But what was unique about the season 1 as well, especially the finale, was the season 1 finale felt to me, and I even stuck by what I said back then. Now, it felt like a special. It felt like, you know how episodes at times would do these unique airings, these unique kind of episodes that felt different, felt like there's something was that you felt like there was something oddly different about that episode, and then you find out that yeah, it's a regular episode, but it also serves as a special. You mostly felt like that during during the holiday season, during the Christmas season, Easter, whatever. You would see these episodes show up, and you'd be like, "Wow, the animation's a lot better than usual." Or it's a lot more different than usual. What's going on here? And then you would find out, oh yeah, it's just part of the episodic airings, but it's also a Christmas special. It's also an Easter special. It's basically serving as a hybrid of both. The season 1 finale episode, Heads or Tails, served as just that. Some would say it was the pilot episode, which initially, when you look at the DVD set, puts it up first. But Heads or Tails during the initial airing aired last, because the comic and my thought process was this: it was basically the comic book come to life, because the characters were presented in the comic book designs. You had the Pink Sally, you had Sally in her original pink in her pink design, her original pink coloring design, whatever. You had Bunny with her comic book design, Antoine and Rhoda the same way. You know, the SWAT bots colored as if they were in the comic book. You had that comedic feel. You had the Buzz Bombers in there, for goodness sakes. So my thought was, basically at the time, this is basically the comic book come to life, and that the episode was serving as a comic book special. It was a special. It was like it's part of the regular run, but it's serving also as a special dedicated to the comic. In other words, it's basically, let's take the elements of the comic, designs and everything, bring them to life. That's what it felt like to me. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that, but again, that's what it felt like to me. That it was like the comic had come to life in that one episode, and that was the season 1 finale. Originally the pilot of the finale. Yeah, I do agree, Impish Dude. Blast of the Past was good. Well, you being 9 or 10 at the time, basically being 4 or 5 years younger, I can understand that. Yeah, it did. Yeah, the Archie. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It felt like the Archie comic book of Sonic the Hedgehog come to life at the time, because what people have to realize is the comic was still going through its initial phase. The comic, which originally debuted, I think, around mid to late '92 with its original miniseries, was just being introduced as a regular series in 1993, and it was still going through its phases. We didn't really get into the comic book taking more after design-wise and then later on story-wise after SatAM until we got to issues 15 and 16. And then that's when you saw Sally get more of her design of what she looked like in SatAM. And like I said, it wouldn't be until like the later teens into the 20s and the 30s that we would get episodes resembling more of what you would see on Sonic SatAM. And that was unique about that. And that was kind of what was cool. And that was what was kind of cool about the comic. It was evolving from a comedic style to a more dramatic, gritty, adventurous style, because I think the people at the time in charge of the comic realized fans wanted more SatAM, but they weren't getting it. So they decided, you know what, let's give it to them in comic book form. And that's what they did. That's what they initially did. And here's the thing. Like I said, it's kind of crazy if you think about it, that the final episode of season 1 was almost like a tribute to the comic book come to life. And then later on during its run, the comic would become more like SatAM. But then we get to season 2, and season 2 is where it became mostly a hybrid again of, it had comedicness in it, but it also had some drama. It was basically like a mixed up total package, if you will, but some things changed around. Like with the hero, like in season 1, some of the comedicness would come off the heroes. Season 2, the comedicness would not just come off the heroes, but it would also mostly come off the antagonist. In this case, Robotnik. Robotnik was the biggest change, because even though they still kept Robotnik threatening and menacing and like, man, this is the guy you don't want to run into in a dark alley, they gave him more of a comedic feel. They made him more comedic at times. Like his expressions would be funny, would be very comedic. Some of the moments that involved him would be laughable. Heck, the situation with Nagus in the Void episode, his confrontation there was comedic, was funny. The fact that you were still able to make a character like Robotnik, who was dark and menacing in the first season, make him still that way, or keep him still that way, but add more comedicness to him, that I have to give thumbs up on that, because that takes effort. Because normally you can't pull that off, and that's what they did here. And they did just that. The other thing about this was, right off the bat, you knew season 2 was going to be more continuity, story-based, like one major story arc. Continuing one episode after the other. Heck, it had nods to season 1. It did. Sonic Inversion was basically a continuation of the season 1 episode Ultrasonic. It was like a sequel to that. Game Guy was kind of I would say, tribute to Sonic Spinball, but that was the season 2 premiere, and it kickstarted the story arc, which was going to lead to the finale, from what people have said. Because in Game Guy, at the end, we find out about a list of freedom fighters. We find out there are other groups out there that are fighting the fight against Robotnik, just like the Knothole freedom fighters are. So that was kind of cool to find out about. Now, another continuing element from season 1 was the de-roboticizer. Now, we didn't know about the de-roboticizer, but you could definitely tell it was a continuity nod to season 1, because just like I said about old Sonic Inversion being like a sequel to the season 1 episode Ultrasonic, Game Guy and Sonic Inversion were nods to that episode as well, because we were wondering, okay, why are the freedom fighters in Ultrasonic looking for spare roboticizer parts? And it wouldn't be until these 2 episodes in season 2 we would find out they were looking for spare roboticizer parts to create a de-roboticizer. Basically, a de-roboticizer that would help them de-roboticize people, or the fellow Mobians that had been roboticized. The only problem is, even though they got the initial parts they needed, and even had to infiltrate Robotnik's headquarters to get one additional part, basically the de-roboticizer wasn't powerful enough to override the initial roboticizing process. Because even though temporarily it would, de-roboticize someone back to flesh and blood, it would only be for like maybe a 24-hour period, or a couple of hour period. And that was about it. And then they would revert back. And how we found this out was in Sonic Inversion. There's a scene after Bunny gets roboticized. Here's the thing. Bunny gets de-roboticized right at the beginning of the episode. She gets de-roboticized. And here's what's funny. You feel the exhilaration from her. It's like as soon as she's back to normal, she looks at herself and she's like, the bunny bod is back. And you feel that excitement with her. You feel that emotional excitement and happiness that, hey, she's back to normal now. But then later on in the episode, the changes, but basically later on in the episode, things change. Things go from great to bad, because what happens is Bunny, during a scene with Sally, as Sally's explaining, okay, this is what we're going to do now that we have this technology in our grasp. What happens is Bunny ends up changing back. All of a sudden you see these lightning bolts. As soon as Bunny's like, she's excited about this too. She's like, we're really going to do it, aren't we? We were going to. And then all of a sudden you see these lightning bolts coming around her, electric bolts and everything, and she just falls back. And then out of this little puff of smoke, you see her back to being half roboticized, and you feel the sadness when she notices that too. And it's just like that was one thing about Sonic SatAM. It got an initial response out of you, and you felt the pain, you felt the happiness or the sadness that the characters went through, and that was an initial moment of it. You know, that was the initial moment of it. It was like you felt like you felt that happiness for her originally, and you felt the sadness, and it would be carried later on. It'd be carried later on because we did kind of get a bit of that in season 1 in Sonic Boom, but you also get it carried on later on in Blast of the Past and The Void. Because here's the thing. Season 2 not only gave us 2 episodes that were the only 2 episodes dedicated to 2 11-minute short comedic shorts. In other words, to give it more of a lighthearted tone. But it was also the only time that we actually had a 2-part episode. Well, initially a 2-part episode. That being Blast of the Past. Now, Blast of the Past, in my opinion, and I think some people would agree, would have served better as the 2-part season 2 premiere instead of being stuck in the middle. Because what happens is Sonic and Sally end up using these mythical items called the Time Stones, which they find on a floating island, which initially Sally, of all characters, doesn't believe in, but does find out is true. And then I think the comics kind of capitalize on this by acknowledging that she did know, but she didn't want to let on she knew, or something like that. So basically, they use these time stones to go back to the past and try to stop Robotnik before he takes over. But because Sonic, who was trying his best to concentrate on what they need, on this year and the location that they needed to focus on to transport to, he let his mind wander to chili dogs. And even though they did get to the spot even though they did get to the year they needed, they didn't exactly get to the location because they were supposed to be transported to in front of the fountain in Mobotropolis. But they weren't. They ended up being transported into an alley, and what happened is they ended up being transported to the very day Robotnik was going to take over. So they didn't have time to come up with a plan to prevent it from happening, because initially the plan was go back in time maybe a day or two, let everybody know what's going on, use Nicole as evidence to show what's going to happen, and then be able to prevent that from happening so that when they go back in time, things will be as they should be and there will be no Robotnik. But that didn't happen. Instead, what happened is things ended up being backfired. Ended up being backfired on them. The only thing they were able to accomplish, actually the only couple of things they were able to accomplish at the time was they were able to save Rosie, who was the like the mother to the freedom fighters, kind of like the guardian, the nanny. They were able to save her from roboticization because initially she did get roboticized, and they were able to download the roboticizer plans, which would help them probably later on to build a de-roboticizer, a more proper de-roboticizer. So yeah, Sonic SatAM had a lot going for it, especially in the second season, because it was also during the second season that the Void, which I mentioned earlier, is not only the second time we see Sally's father, because she does reunite with him in the past. And what's funny is it takes the father in the past almost a second to look into Sally's eyes to almost know it's her. Because when Uncle Chuck was known as Sir Charles in the past, and in the present, basically mentions that she's from the future, because she walks up to the king and she says, "Daddy, it's me." And then the king's looking at Sir Charles and they're like, "Sir Charles, what's this about?" kind of deal. And when Chuck says, "Hey, she's from the future," and the king sounds like he's a little skeptical, and he's like, "The future?" And then he looks at her and he looks right, and then the camera zooms into her eyes a little bit, and that's kind of like motion picture, like, because we've seen that in motion pictures at times. And he gets to, and the king's like, "Sally?" He's like, "Sally?" And she acknowledges it, and then he looks at the royal signet, and then and to make sure it's her, he has to recite the royal what's this thing? Um, the royal, the family grado, basically the family promise, the royal family promise, and she recites it, and he knows, like, then there it's her. And she basically is telling her father, this is what's going to happen. But as she's telling him, that's when Robotnik invades or starts his takeover. And you kind of get a sense that that's what she wanted to do initially, that the original plan was go back a day or two, let her father know what's happening, show her father what's going to happen, and then prevent it. But like I said, getting back to the Void episode, not only does she find out exactly where her father has been this whole time because of Robotnik, but her father gives her the list of freedom fighters that we find out at the beginning of season 2 is a reality, is a real thing, and is legit. But the Void also, in my opinion, served as a prelude episode to the 4 final episodes of the series, or initially at the time of season 2, because there was a season 3 planned, but initially of the series. And not only does the Void serve as sort of that prologue episode, prelude episode, but it's emotional too, especially the fact that Sally doesn't want to leave her father. She just found him, and now he's got to go back to the Void because apparently outside the Void, him and Nagus are going to turn to crystal and die. Now, if that's true or not, we don't know. Because in season 3, Nagus was supposed to come back as the main antagonist, so we don't know whether or not he was just pulling a prank or something. We don't know. But basically, you feel the emotion of Sally. It's like she doesn't want to let her father go, but she knows it's for the best. So, anyway, getting back on point here, she gets the list, and after we do that, so she gets the list, I should say, and then about 2 weeks later, because we got to go do they got one more of those one more episode of the 2 11-minute short kind of thing to do with to air in between, to kind of give you a break from the norm. we get into the 4-part finale. Now I look at this and I call this 4-part finale the Doomsday Saga, because when you split them up, it's almost like with Spider-Man the animated series. You see, in the 1990s, around the mid to late 90s, Fox Kids did Spider-Man the animated series, and later on in its run, it would have episodes that were like subtitles, because the initial title would be Sins of the Father Chapter 7 or Chapter 4, and then underneath it would say what the title was of the episode. That's what it felt like here, because it felt like you had Doomsday Project, Chapter 1, Cry of the Wolf, Doomsday Project Chapter 2, Hedgehog, Chapter 3, Spyhog, and then Chapter 4, Doomsday Project. That's what it felt like, because each episode connected to the other. And me, initially, what I did is I took all those episodes, and after several attempts to do it correctly, it wasn't until I lived here in California, lived back here in California, that I was able to get it right, that I was able to edit it and put it together correctly, that I was able to make a legit, in my opinion, Doomsday Project movie. Because what I did is I took the beginning of Doomsday Project, the final episode, waited till we got to the title card, paused it as soon as it faded to black, went back to Cry of the Wolf, waited until the intro and stuff was done there, and the title card from that was gone, and as soon as it faded from black, I carefully unpaused it and was able to make it sink in. So sink in almost seamlessly. Because I think what I did as well is I also paused the DVD, that the source that I was using, just in time to do that. So I was able to do that seamlessly. And it worked. It actually worked, in my opinion. It actually worked. Because it felt like, and you can ask Zara Nizarak this if you want to message him, it worked out perfectly. It worked out perfectly. Let me see what Impish Dude said. Yeah, that's what I was saying. They saved Rosie in the past. Yeah, Grado. That's what it was. Secret Family Grado. Yeah, that's the thing. That was the emotional part when he said the goodbye, Sally. And I'll have to give credit to Tim Curry. He voiced a lot of characters at that time. Presently he voiced characters like in Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa. He voiced characters in Batman and all that. But this has to be one of his strongest performances, especially with that last line. Because when they got him to voice the King, you knew they had, because when they got Tim Curry to voice King Acorn or King Max, or whatever you want to call him, or King Nigel, depending on what you call him now, they knew they had a good choice there. And especially with that last line, like you mentioned, where he says goodbye to Sally, and you hear that, it's like when she's hugging Sonic, you see tears coming down her eyes. It's like you knew they made the right choice. You knew that. But yeah, basically getting back to what I was saying, I had seamlessly, through my DVD and DVD recorder, was able to put together the Doomsday Project movie. And I sent it to Zara Nizarak. I sent it to some people that had helped me out. I think Rafaela XD and Jay Foxfire and a few others. I think I even though it wasn't initially the way I was hoping, I even sent it to Bob Show. Yeah, I sent it to Bob Show as well. So when he plays it, he's probably just going to get it like in 2 parts, but I was able to piece it together. Well, I didn't piece it together, but I was able to do something with it. Maybe I'll send another one to the next one to Animat or maybe the Linkara, who knows. um, but yeah, I sent those, but I was able to. It's a bit of a thank you, and just to see what they thought, I sent it to them. And it, like I said, when you watch it, it feels like it's a movie. And that was the one thing that always bugged me was, you know what? If ABC knew possibly that this was going to be it, and Dick Entertainment, now DHX Media, knew it was going to be it, why didn't they work something out to where they take a page out of what Fox Kids did with Power Rangers and X-Men and decide just to air the whole thing as a movie on a TGIF Friday, so that not only would you get more people intrigued in the series to maybe want to bring it back, but you'd get more eyeballs on your Saturday morning product as a whole. It's like, hey, if we can offer this, what else can we offer? You know what I'm saying? It's like, if we can offer this, what else can we offer? What else do you think we have? But yeah, I remember watching that, and what was funny to me was when we got to, and what was cool about the Doomsday Saga is we got introduced to Loop and the Wolfpack, and Lupe or Loopy or whatever you want to call it, Loop, has gone on to be a huge fan favorite. Even to this day, she's become a huge fan favorite. In fact, when they did the soft retcon of reboot, one of the characters fans wanted to see back and were hoping was going to come back was Loop. They wanted her back because she was cool. Heck, Chaotic Lover even dedicated an episode or two to her, not an episode, but a story or so to her and Sally. But mostly because she had to help Sally with these new powers she got, these elastic-like powers that allowed Sally to become reduce herself to a near liquefied puddle, be able to get through cracks, shapeshift into different kind of objects and stuff, as well as change her look and everything to be different, like attractive, sexy, whatever, and even be able to shapeshift into a suit. There is a part in a story where she's training Sally, Loop's training Sally, and this is Chaotic Lover 2's story, that you can find at fanfiction.net, I believe. Chaotic Lover 2, it's one word. And she basically, Sally's powers allow her to be able to become like a suit, a battle suit, even to the point that she can somehow form glass over the eyes, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that's how popular Loop is. She gets that kind of story to the point that in the story she gets elastic powers of her own, or something like that. But getting back on point, it introduced us to Loop. It finally brought Tails' story full circle, because even though he would be involved in adventures in season 1, he wasn't originally part of the team. He was not initially a freedom fighter. Season 2 began a mini story arc, where he was being trained by Sonic, Sally, Bunny, Rotor, all of them to become a freedom fighter, a proper freedom fighter. And it was in the episode Druid Hedge that it finally came all full circle, because Sally finds out that the plan to do the old switcheroo and trade out a false Deep Power Stone for the real one, and kind of trick Robotnik with it, if you will, wasn't Sonic's idea, but it was Tails' idea. Tails was the one that had come up with it, and that was enough to impress Sally to the point that at the end of the episode, she declares him an official freedom fighter, and now he can go on missions. And according to Ben Hurst, this was supposed to develop even further, to the point that in season 3, Tails would discover some other powers that he has, even during a point to where these new powers that he discovers helps save the freedom fighters from disaster or something. There was even a scene in Druid Hedge that was cut out, that was supposed to develop the relationship between Sonic and Tails, and as he's growing up and becoming a freedom fighter and stuff. So yeah, we got that. We got Spy Hog, which basically brought the whole Uncle Chuck not only getting his free will restored back in Sonic Conversion, even though he was roboticized again, but it brings that full circle, because you find out because Robotnik starts to piece a lot of the clues together. Because the one thing that any fans would be wondering is, how can Robotnik not know why his plans are being foiled so easily? It's like, how can the Freedom Fighters always be a step ahead of him? And it isn't until this episode, or this part of the Doomsday Saga, that he finds out he's being spied on. Someone's leaking information. And we do get we do get one of the more iconic moments in there, where at first Snively, who's tasked with finding out who it is, thinks it's Antoine at first, and then tortures him with the whole escargot thing, and basically the iconic part is when he shows the well, basically you got to look at the scene yourself, but basically Antoine flips out when Snively, instead of using butter, uses margarine, wants to use margarine on escargot. So you got to look at that scene. It's really funny. It's really iconic. One of the iconic moments in the show. But the reason Antoine ended up in that situation is because another thing came full circle as well. As much as you may or may not like it, during one of the initial missions during that episode was siphoning fuel from Ronald Robotnik's tankers. Sally's electric vest, one of the wires comes loose, so her electric vest is causing her to fall. So she's hanging on to one of the bars so she doesn't get discovered. And Antoine sees this. He grabs onto her vest, or one of the straps on the magnet thing, whatever, and gives her enough time to reattach the loose wire so that the magnet stays connected. And how does Sally thank him? Not just there, but later on, by finally giving him a kiss on the cheek. And that is something that Antoine has always wanted. He wanted something that would at least impress him to Sally just enough to where he can get at least a kiss from her, and that's what he does. But of course, being Antoine, it goes straight to his head. But then of course, before that happens, you have Bunny as they have these magnets things, or whatever they are, these magnet vests attached to them. But Bunny, as they're allowing themselves to be magnetized to the tanker so they can siphon the gas. Bunny has the line that says, where she basically says, "Man, this sure makes her feel attractive." You kind of get the innuendo there, if you catch my drift. But then, of course, later on, like I said, Antoine lets the kiss go to his head. And when Sonic goes to save his butt, which he does, and they meet up with Bunny, Sally, and even Dulcie, because Dulcie flew Antoine there. Sally's asking what happened, and Sonic's like, "I'll tell you later." I'm just wondering if they had a deleted scene of that, where finally she wants to know what happened, and Sonic and maybe Bunny just go to her and say, "Yeah, you remember that kiss you gave him? Remember how we told you don't ever do that, even if he does something good? It went, because it'll go to his head. Guess what? It went to his head." Or something like. I would love to see a scene where Sonic would basically explain, "Yeah, you know how you're supposed to you know how you give kisses to some of us who are doing a great job of being heroes, but we told you maybe a hug to Antoine or a handshake would be, or a salute or whatever would be better instead of a kiss. Guess what? That kiss went straight to his head." I would love to have seen something like that. But anyway, basically we find out that in the episode, Uncle Chuck is discovered, and Robotnik tries to get information about what a knothole is and everything. That fails, and we find out that Uncle Chuck has had a backup plan the whole time, just in case, and he has a new hiding spot, as well as he has a new method of spying, which is basically disguise himself as maybe a worker bot or something. If you catch my idea, catch what I'm saying, if you get what I'm saying, if you will. But yeah, that's the initial thing that he has worked out. And then you get to the Doomsday Project episode, which is basically an all-out assault on the Doomsday Project. Obviously, it also nods to the fact that Robotnik knows he's being spied on, because basically there are reports that say he's supposed to activate the device or activate the Doomsday Project at a certain time, but then they find out he's activating it a week later because, well, obviously he knows he's still being spied on, so it's best that he stays a step ahead instead of the freedom fighters, and he also knows it's going to lure them out, which it does. So long story short, all the plans that they have to get at the Doomsday Project fail, basically backfire. I mean, even Sonic tells Sally as they're being watched by Robotnik that their cover is blown. That basically Robotnik knew they were going to fall for this. He knew they were coming. Even to the point that Robotnik has built a Pacific roboticizer for Sonic just in case. But even that backfires, and this all leads back to the deep power stones in Druid Hedge, because Robotnik obviously seems confident enough he doesn't need them, that he leaves one of them back in Robotropolis. Sonic goes there along with Nicole to get it, and then him and Sally basically use that to just basically wipe out the Doomsday Project. But first, Sonic wants to do it on his own, but then Sally says, "No, we're doing this together," and it's there that Sally acknowledges that, hey, you're more than just my friend, kind of deal. Or more than just my comrade, my fellow freedom fighter, my friend, or whatever. And that's when that basically right there is when it initially happens. That's when the initial officializing of the two come together. So basically what happens is they use the deep power stones, because there's two ways of using them. One way can wipe out everything, can destroy everybody. But the other way is a positive reaction, gives ultimate power. And how does this happen? They do it the way that gives ultimate power. They connect it. Obviously, the stones seep into the bodies. I guess. I don't know how that works. And basically, Sally is temporarily given Sonic's speed. Not only does Sonic keep his speed, but his power and speed is transferred to her, and they're able to use that to destroy the Doomsday Project. At the same time, Robotnik tries to escape, leaving Snively behind, because one of the other mini story arcs is Snively is getting sick and tired of being mistreated, wants to start his own coup kind of deal. Well, basically, Robotnik wants to leave him behind, but Snively, which one of his sayings at the end is, "Hey, you don't give me enough credit, Julian." Snively's able to escape as well because he had backup plans as well. But during the destruction of the Doomsday Project, according to what Ben Hurst says, it temporarily opens a portal just wide enough to where Nagus is able to suck Robotnik in. And you hear that, because you hear Robotnik kind of going like kind of deal at the end. You're thinking maybe he got killed, but no, he's being sucked into the void by Nagus. And according to Ben Hurst, Nagus not only was supposed to serve as the antagonist, but Robotnik was going to be his lackey. Go figure. But yeah, that was basically what was going to happen. And of course, the show ends with both Sally and Sonic confirming their love and kissing each other, Snively vowing that it's his turn, and you get these red glowing eyes that Ben Hurst acknowledged was going to be Nagus, not Knuckles, not Metal Sonic, but Nagus. And there you go. So yeah, Sonic SatAM definitely has a long-lasting legacy. The comics themselves have a legacy as well, because like I said earlier, the comics, when it got to the 20s and the 30s and late teens, issue-wise of its run, were becoming more SatAM-like. They were becoming darker and dramatic and stuff. They still had the comedicness here and there, but they were becoming more darker and dramatic as time went on. And to say they went in directions that you would think the cartoon would go in, that's an understatement, because they did, and they went even further than that. Even further. And then, of course, as time went on, we got to the iconic, 47 to 50 issues, known as Endgame. And you saw issues before that leading up to it. Now, according to what I understand, Endgame was supposed to be it. It was supposed to be the end of the comic. But because Ken Penders didn't think the comic was going to last a lot longer, and yet it did, or it wasn't going to be as popular as it was, but it became that way, and Endgame itself helped do that. And the initial idea was the Sally that was supposed to come back after Endgame was supposed to be an auto-animatronic. In other words, a robotic duplicate. Just like in the episode Sonic and Sally, and in the spin-off miniseries, which preceded this, called Princess Sally. But that didn't happen. Instead, what happened was Sally is that Sega got upset because at this time, Sega had an indoor theme park called Sega Land in Australia, and I think in the UK, and I think some parts of the US. But mostly the biggest one was on Australia. And Australia had a stage show called Sonic Live where Sally was a featured character and she had merchandise based around her. Merchandise. So basically Sega being involved in that didn't like the fact that that character was killed off in the comic, and along with fans had pressured Ken Penders to rewrite the script, bring her back, and she was placed, instead of being declared dead, was placed in a coma and then placed in some kind of like memorial casket outside of Knothole to where she would be able to heal up and everything. And the way Endgame ends is with her, is with Sonic opening up the casket or the memorial, the whatever, stasis tube, giving her a kiss on the cheek, telling her he loves her, and that's what wakes her up. Kind of like Snow White kind of deal. Snow White, Sleeping Beauty kind of deal. And the comic would become a little bit more dark, a little bit more mature, would go through a lot of different artists. Ken Penders would stay on board for a while. Then we got up to issue 75. That's where we get the introduction of that's where we get the reintroduction of Robotnik, who's now taking over for the initial Robotnik, because everybody thought at first that Robotnik had come back, but he didn't, because there was a series of events involving satellites and stuff that would concur with other events back on the planet. But instead, it turns out to be Robotnik, and he becomes the new antagonist that's donning the name Dr. Eggman. And for a while, the rest is history. Of course, we go through some initial moments at a time. Carl Bollers comes on board for a while, and he takes over writing. And depending on who or what you believe, he basically, as he wrote for the comic, wrote probably the most iconic, if not disturbing, if not distasteful moments in the comic. And that iconic, disturbing, distasteful moment to a lot of fans was 134 and the slap. Because during this time, Penders and Bollers, along with some other writers, but mostly Penders and Bollers, would go back and forth with the comic. And 125 was a big step as well, because here's the thing. Sonic and Sally had just gotten back together. They were kind of on the ins and outs. We didn't know what was going on. They were trying to start something with Carl Bollers, I think, tried to start something along with Sonic and Mina Mongoose that didn't go nowhere. It wouldn't be until about 121, 122, 123, I should say, where basically Sonic and Sally finally realized that they still love each other, they still care about each other. And Mina Mongoose, of course, heartbroken, give her credit, understands this, and realizes, hey, you know what? I still care about him, to the point that if this is what's going to make him happy, fine. That's cool with me. Even to the point that she takes a bullet, not fatally, but just injuriously, to, protect Sally from being shot by Knack the Weasel. Then 124 comes around, and basically that's where we get the announcement that Sonic and Sally are engaged, or whatever it's called for royalty. Royal Consult. I think it's called Royal Consult, or whatever. But basically they're intended to be married. And that doesn't last too long. That lasts about maybe 10 issues, because, of course, Sonic sacrifices himself, or seemingly sacrifices himself in 125. We get issues after that indicating that he did survive, but he was blasted 85,000 light years away. Finds a, and basically these issues deal with him trying to get back, which he does, but he ends up coming back a year later. Yeah. What he would initially think would maybe be a couple of days ends up being a year later. And yeah, a lot's been going on. Antron gets replaced by an evil version of himself called Patch, who tries to marry Sally to gain power and gain control. That backfires because even though he had plans to poison the king and all that, which he did, that backfires. But here's the thing. Patch, which is evil Antoine, does succeed in killing a character, which is Antoine's father. So anyway, long story short, Sonic comes back, sees all these happening, all this going on, has his relationship break down with Sally, which it does. He goes through various love interests for a bit. He even has a moment with Bunny Rabbit, and we're not just talking evil Sonic because that happened like back around issue 150, but it actually happens later on after that, where this creation of Robotnik's called Adam, and he also created like a daughter-like being called Mecha. But Adam tries to assimilate Bunny, but doesn't realize Bunny is part organic. How's that going to work? So anyway, I guess Sonic was able to convince it's not going to work, save Bunny. Bunny kisses him. So it's like they had something there. And then, like I said, one of the more noticeable relationships that he had was with Fiona Fox, which, of course, caused some dissent between him and Tails later on, because Tails, of course, loves Fiona as well. It was just for a while, I would say initially from 134 to about 160, when Ian Flynn took over, it was just a mess. And then from 160 on, Ian Flynn, despite how you feel about him now, back then tried his best to clean up all the messes and unnecessary plot holes that were there. Even to the point that he turned Fiona bad again because basically she got attracted to Sonic's evil double, and being a former antagonist herself at that time, before she went back to it, was able to notice the difference. So then, of course, the whole Fiona thing led to 178 and 79, where basically we find out that the reason Tails has been kind of one-offish with Sonic for a while is because Sonic was dating Fiona. That to Tails, Sonic wasn't being, how do I put it, courteous enough. He wasn't being courteous enough, or even Sonic wasn't being a true friend. He wasn't being a big bro, if you will. Didn't have the courtesy to let Fiona know, hey, yeah, I know we got this thing going on, but my friend Tails here, my bro Tails here, has feelings for you as well. Yeah, he may be a year or so younger, but try him out. That's what Tails basically felt like in that story. Was like, hey, if you were my brother, you cared about me, you were my friend, you would have told her, hey, you would have told Fiona, hey, this thing ain't gonna work, but here, try Tails instead. So anyway, yeah, it was just a long story. And one thing Ian Flynn was able to do, give him credit, was he was able to repair Sonic and Sally's relationship, but he did it slowly and very gradually. Because yes, we did get the issue 200 where they did defeat Eggman, and it caused him to go insane, and it did introduce us to a year-long run of the Iron Dominion, with the Iron Queen and Snively as the main antagonist. It did give us Monkey Kong's return, and then as well as give us a little bit of a relationship between Kong and Sally, which when it happened, I alluded to the fact was nothing more than just a story, a fling or something like that happening for the story, because it reminded me of the episodes of Saved by the Bell during the summer, where they had summer jobs at a beach, and not Sonic, but Zach had this relationship with this girl Stacy, and it was only for that run, as well as he had this relationship in the Hawaiian style movie with this other lady, with this other girl, and that was only for that. That's exactly how I looked at this, was the fact that this relationship between Khan and Sally was just for the story, and that's what it was. Because what Ian Flynn did is he used that, especially at the end and the stories afterwards, as a slow progressing build to Sonic and Sally being back together, which happened in 222, and the rest was history. That is until we got to about 225, where Sally at the end gets shot down by a turret gun, but then is brought back thanks to Sega Sonic Genesis story. Sonic and Sally are the only ones that are able to, as time goes on in that story arc, to realize, hey, this something's not right here, and they're able to they're able to get the memories together, able to piece the puzzles together, and Sonic is able to go back in time just enough to save Sally from being shot down, but not enough time to prevent Sally from sacrificing herself to become Mecha Sally by having the roboticizer, the global roboticizer, placed on her. Because basically throughout all this, we get other things happening. We get introduced to Bunny's family, basically her Uncle Beauregard. We find out that all these things that are happening, these oil siphons, oil plants, or whatever, are all part of a plan for Robotnik to bring back the Death Egg, which he does. But the Death Egg is equipped with a global roboticizer that once activated, roboticizes the whole planet. So Sally is able to basically direct it on her, which a lot of fans, even myself, have been like, well, wait a minute. If she can have Nicole direct the roboticizer on her, couldn't she have her just have it direct the beam to go across the sky and that's it? That never really sit well with a lot of fans, including myself. But yeah, we had the Mecha Sally thing going on for about, initially from 230, from the end of 230, from the last page in 230 to all the way to 247, and that was it. And that there itself was a mess, because Ian Flynn had plans to restore Sally a certain way, but then of course he had the interruptions by Sega by saying, hey, take this issue of, what was it, 240 something, I can't remember, and promote the Olympics with that one, or do this with Sonic Universe. It was just a mess. And then, of course, you had the lawsuit situation with Pendas and a few others. So the stories had to be altered. Certain characters had to be taken out. Just a mess. And whether you agree with it or not, I think. And then, of course, you had the. The story. You had the crossover between Sonic and Mega Man, which was Worlds Collide. Again, it was just a huge mess. And everybody would think Worlds Collide could have had its own story. Like Worlds Collide could have had its own story, could have had its own story arc, could have had its own, book and everything, but it didn't. It was stuck right in the middle. It interrupted story arcs. And the one thing it did for Sonic was it basically did a soft retcon reboot to where everything got sort of restored, but changed up. Histories were changed, things. And once Sonic was able to meet up with everybody with the new looks and designs and all that, once he was able to meet up with everybody, and some of the personalities changed up a bit, just tweaked a little bit here and there, I predicted, in my opinion, that Nicole was going to be like the key to them having the memories restored, and I was right. Each of them would grab Nicole's handheld, and they would have the memories restored, because for some reason, Sonic and Nicole were the only ones that knew about both worlds. And it took Tails, Rotor, Antoine, and Bunny, Sally, and Amy to touch Nicole to be like, whoa, to get the memories restored. And that, and have basically everything reconnected, like Antoine and Bunny's marriage reconnected. Sally recalling her being roboticized and doing what she did, and even breaking down about it. It was just, it was like, how do you start off fresh? you do this. And the one thing people will be wondering about is, well, why not Knuckles? The whole Knuckles situation is a mess. Because if they wanted to do that, Knuckles would remember Julie Sue, he would remember his mom, he would remember the Brotherhood, and all that. And it would be just a mess, and you'd have another legal battle there. And like I said, you'd just have another legal battle there, and I don't think they wanted to go through that. I don't think they wanted to go through that at all. You would just have a legal mess, if you catch my drift. So when you look at it in a sense, yeah, it was just a mess, if you will, at that time. And then, of course, we get towards the end of the comic, which, wow. One thing that the Eggman mentioned in the comics, and I think even the Freedom Fighters acknowledged this, was as time would go on, continuity-wise, after this soft retcon reboot, and after they've helped restore the world, because after we had this whole Mecha Sally thing that ran for about 17 issues plus, the plus being some of the Sonic Universe issues you would add into it, almost 2 years worth. Then you had basically from, what was it, 252, let me see. You would have from 253, 4, 5, and 6. Hey, hold on. Yeah. Four, see, 53, 54, 55, 56. When you got to, so basically after doing 4 months of that, from 57 to basically 87, you had 30 issues, 2.5 years of one major story arc just to basically wrap everything up. Yeah, just to wrap everything up. And I'm not saying the story arc wasn't good. It was okay. It gave us more, it basically gave us more of an idea of the change that the characters were going through. Like, you could tell it was still the same characters. You could tell it was them. You could tell it was Bunny. You could tell it was Sally. You could tell it was Rhoda, Antoine, you name it. Yeah, they had change in designs, and sometimes the personalities changed here and there or tweaked here and there, but it was still them. And that was the great part about it. It was still them. It was still them. I mean, I like the fact that the first issue after this, you have Sally basically being on what's known as the, what was it? The on their flying headquarters, the Freedom Fortress, not the fortress, but basically on the ship, the Freedom. I can't think of the name right now. I can't think of the name right now. Let me check here. No, I don't want to read. Let's see. Sky Patrol. That's what it is. The Sky Patrol. Sally, basically the issue afterwards kind of still plays on what happened after the memories were restored and everything. And they play upon this for issues to come for a while, because Sally stays behind on Sky Patrol and she starts kind of being like a little doubtful about what she can do because of what she had done previously in the other timeline, because of what she had done before everything got reset. And she gets a quick reminder from encouragement and reminder from Nicole about what she, and even Cream, that hey, what happened then doesn't matter. You need to be the Sally that did this. Encourage these characters. Encourage a whole world. That encourage, Loop and Dulcie and everybody else to fight. We don't need a Sally that's like, oh, I don't know what I can do anymore. And that's enough for her to regain her confidence and be like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That's not me. That's not me. I need to be the Sally that's the leader that's gonna do what's right for these people. Basically, Nicole's telling her, hey, get over it. Yeah, that happened, but that's in the past. Another time now. This is you. You be yourself. And that's what happens. So, yeah. From then on in, you got this story arc going on, which is basically part Sonic Unleashed adaptation, and it's a Sonic Unleashed adaptation, but it's partially Sonic Unleashed adapted, and it's mostly just a wrap up of everything that's happened since about, I would initially say 225 at least. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. And they even, of course, just like with the Mecha Sally arc and all that, they had Sonic Universe stories that connected to it. They had one with Knuckles and Amy. They had one with Nicole's origin, stuff like that. So just back and forth, So basically, the story went beyond just 2.5 years. It almost went like 3 years if you add, like I say, the Sonic Universe stories that connected to it. So overall, the comic had a huge run in 25 years. In the 25 years that people have known about it, it's had a huge run. Huge run. It's unfortunate that it had to come to an end last year, but, what are you going to do? There's a lot of us that didn't really get all the final issues. I mean, we got issues sporadically. I mean, I ended up getting, 289 and 291. That was it. I had to email them and let them know what was going on. And they told me, oh, this is what's happening and stuff. So, but they would get the issues out. And it wasn't until last year's Comic-Con that we find out, yeah, Archie and Sega, they're done. But guess what? Now IDW and Sega are working together. And it's like I said in that audio video I did recently. In fact, somebody even, I think it was Alex the Hedgehog, basically said, yeah, one of my initial ideas, and someone did a DeviantArt cover of it, was just have IDW say, hey, this is our #1 issues, but in parentheses say it's actually issue this. And I stick by what I said. I think if IDW, Ian Flynn, and all of them want to avoid all this backlash, controversy, whatever, despite the sellout of the first 4 issues, they should have just stuck to continuing the story where it left off. They could have said issue 1 for IDW, and in parentheses say issue 288 or 289. And that's it. It would have worked out. But they didn't do that. They wanted to craft something new. The only hope now that a lot of people have, because even though they say the door's not shut on it, is the Freedom Fighters coming in at least by the start of next year. And I stick by what I believe. I believe that before this year's out, we're going to get references, maybe some silhouettes or acknowledgments of their existence, and come next year, they will be in the book. That's what I feel is going to happen. Could I be wrong? Probably, but I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it, because here's one thing about the history of me and myself and my interactions with Ian Flynn. It seems that it seemed like it seemed that even though I would post some things on his forum, on his Bumble King forums, like videos, like AMVs and stuff like that, one of the things I did notice was there were times that he would take down or he would remove my post because it felt like, maybe it's just my opinion, but it felt like I knew what was going to happen before he was going to have it happen. In fact, somebody at one of the Saturday morning Sonic forums said, acknowledged, hey, Brian said it was going to happen this way, and guess what? It did. If that's the case, if Ian Flynn knew he was going to have people like me, fans like me, predict what was going to happen before before the comic even released, maybe he should have came up with a better idea of what he was going to do. Make it unpredictable. You know what I'm saying? I mean, heck, if I was still part of the Bumble King forums when he did the whole Iron Dominion arc and said, yeah, and he started he started this whole Con Sally thing, relationship deal, and I would probably be one of those people be like, yeah, you know what, this is only going to last for the story arc, that's it, and then he's going to go and build to Sonic and Sally. Knowing me, I probably would have said something like that, and that probably would have ticked him off. And I don't mean to piss people off. Excuse my language, God. I don't mean to tick people off. But I think initially, with people like me saying stuff like that, he didn't like it. Now, again, I don't know if that's what contributed to it. I don't know. And I think that's why he's getting criticized here at times by fans. Because when you take a look at Tangle, you take a look at those two new antagonists, Rough and Ready or Tough and Ready, whatever they are, Tough and Tumble. They basically look like, to many fans' eyes, they look like IDW versions of Bean and Bark. And Tangle looks like the IDW version of Sally, supposed to be the equivalent of her. Because if you look at the face and everything, it's almost like, hey, that's got to be this seems to be like a Sally-like character, even though her tail is able to do certain things. And then people point out that Amy's personality in IDW has been replaced with almost a Sally Acorn-like personality. It's almost like they took Sally's soul and placed it in Amy's soul body, and took Amy's soul and placed it into indefinite hibernation. That's what it feels like to people. And honestly, you can't really blame anybody if they feel like that. And I think that's what got him upset with the fans, is because I think fans are noticing you're not, basically fans are coming out and saying, look, you're not fooling us, Ian. We know what's going on here. We see that these are just your way of saying, oh, you want Sally in IDW? Here's Tangle. She's basically the Sally of IDW. Oh, you want Sally's personality and quirk and to play off of Sonic like she did in the comics of Archie and SatAM? Here's Amy now with that personality. They're not falling for it. To a lot of fans, they're not falling for it. And they want Ian to come out and admit it. That's all they want. And they want, at least, in my opinion, they want flat out, they want an answer. They want one answer, and that's it. They want to know yay or nay if the Freedom Fighters are going to be in there. I believe they are, because MJ Knight last year said it best. Sally Acorn is still very popular with the fans, even to this day. Heck, some fans even did a fun little conversation piece between her and Tangle. Heck, some fan even did a drawing where Sally's like this, and Tails is asking Sonic what's going on, and Sonic's like, oh, she's just in stasis right now. She's just kind of stuck in a stasis mode right now because they don't know what they're going to do at IDW. Fans want these characters. And like I said, I think as soon as these characters show up, which in my opinion will be next year, and we might, like I said, we might get some acknowledgement this year, because this is the 25th anniversary of SatAM and of the comic, and mostly of the debut of Sally, Bunny, Antoine, and Rotor. This is the 25th anniversary. So we'll get some kind of acknowledgement, in my opinion, of their existence in this world, reference, silhouettes, whatever, before this year's out, and we'll get a full-on debut next year, where I believe when we get that full-on debut, these characters are going to become huge mainstays. It's like you won't be able to go an issue without seeing them in there or involved in the story somehow. So, so I honestly, I think that's why fans are upset right now. They want a straight answer. It's kind of like my mom. It's kind of like what my mom and some of my family members. They're asked so many questions, not just to me, but to a lot of other people. Even though it might get on their nerves, they have good intentions in wanting to ask these questions because they want a straight answer. They want an answer right then and there. They don't want no mumbo jumbo. They just want a yes or a no, or this is how it will happen, or that won't, or this is why it won't happen kind of deal. That's what they want. They don't want any kind of mumbo jumbo. They just want straight answers. And that's what the fans want here. They want a straight answer as to when, not if, not, oh, they're in consideration, or, yeah, they'll show up. We're just not going to say. They want straight answers is what they want. And they're not going to stop till they get them. That's the whole deal. So, yeah, I think I've been up here long enough talking about Sonic and the 25 years of Sonic SatAM and the Archie Sonic comics. That's really all I'm going to say. I mean, one thing I will say in closing, there are a lot of fans from Game Boy Sage to people that work on the Archie Sonic Online comic. If you want basically a continuation of some of the books, of some of the stories, initial stories, on how they would have been or how fans interpret them to be, check out Archie Sonic Online, check out Game Boy Sage, and a few other people that are working on their own ideas of how they feel the comics initially from 247 onward would have continued, if not ended. But really, that's all I'm going to say, guys. Like I said, I've been on here long enough. So let me know what you all think. And thank you all for tuning in live. Thank you, Impish Dude, for your comments in the comment section. Really appreciate that. And really, that's all I can really say. Hey, and everything. So again, thank you all for watching. I've been on here long enough, almost 3 hours, it feels like. So again, let me know what you all think down below in the comments section. I would like to hear from each and every one of you on what your thoughts are. And don't forget as well, just to let you guys know, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is going to be happening. Jim Carrey is rumored to be playing Robotnik or Eggman. And the filming begins around the Vancouver area in September and August and October. So if you're in those areas, maybe you guys can get some pics of what's going on and go from there. But really, that's all I'm going to say, guys. So let me get out of here. It's almost 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific. But again, thank you all for tuning in live. And I'll talk to y'all later. Let me know what you all think down below. And I am out. Thank you all for tuning in. God bless. Take care.